Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Shir program with Rabbi Menachem Bernfeld. Thank you for joining us this Sunday night. It's very cold over here on the East Coast, so we could have some warmth over here together. Tonight's Shir 176. First, I want to thank everybody on this platform, for helping it grow. This is going on almost 4 years. We'll come out by the anniversary over here, March we started, and 4 years ago, and tonight's Shir 176. Baruch Hashem. And thank you for posting it on your statuses. And then now we're basically focusing on email. We're having a lot of WhatsApp problems, so we're trying to focus on email. There is a new WhatsApp chat that's going to be in the emails. If you want to join, just Sunday to get the flyers from the group, you will be able to join that. And again, if anybody wants to join the WhatsApp groups, you can WhatsApp me at 732-314-1710, and I will send you the link for that. The best thing is to go to menachembernfeld.com's website and to sign up for his weekly flyers, where he has the speakers, he has the replays and everything there. So please join and be part of our Sikh Saver. And Menachem tonight is going to be in Moed Kasher. We have the schus of having Rabbi Greenwald here with us tonight, live from Eretz Yisrael, early morning. And anybody's watching the replay of this, please click on the like button, the subscribe button, Coach Menachem, and every Sunday when he uploads the shir, you get to watch it. And first, we thank all the advertising sponsors that promote us, the Lakewood Scoop here in Lakewood, Eli Nario from Five Town Central, and Chaya Kaufman from JCN for always promoting us on all the digital Jewish platforms. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night at 9:30 at the Zoom ID, we have different topics, different abonim, different therapists, different gedolim and Klal Yisrael that come on, talk about very important things. And next week we're going to have a shir on February 27th, Sunday night, with Reb Shmuel Reichman, who's been on a few times. He's a very dynamic speaker. He wants to talk about the whispers of unity, safeguarding the unfathomable, ensuring the unprecedented achdus doesn't fade away. The achdus that Klal Yisrael has now should continue February 25th. So please join us next week. He's a very dynamic speaker and should be very powerful. Tonight we have the schus and the honor of having with us, I would say, world famous Rosh Yeshiva from TJ in Eretz Yisrael. He's a speaker. He has probably thousands of talmidim by now. Rabbi Chananya Greenwald, and it's schus to have him here. Shem tonight's share. Hopefully we'll be able to be mechazik a lot of people and really discuss a very important topic. Tonight's share is 176. We always start off with the gematria of Chananya. So we're going to start with the gematria. Tell us if it's a good gematria. Our friend Rabbi Fried is going to give the gematria. Here we go.
Shir number 176. Is it possible to achieve proper parenting alongside unconditional love and freedom? One who can accomplish unconditional love and freedom will realize that this is a double favor, which leads us to tonight's gematria. The gematria of 176 is Utoiva Kafula, a double favor by accomplishing unconditional love and freedom.
Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to turn first to Coach Menachem. Coach Menachem, we're here Sunday night. A lot of people here. Why are we here? What are we doing here? Nobody wants to go to sleep. Why should we stay up?
Very good. Welcome, everyone, to another Let's Get Real with Coach Menachem. Here we are, Baruch Hashem, with a lot of Siyata D'Shmaya. Like we heard, number 176. And it's a schus to have Rabbi Greenwald discussing a little bit of parenting. There's a lot to talk about. We've had many programs, but you're talking about parenting. Every child is a world for itself. And the ages, when they're young, teenagers, after they get married, there's a lot to talk about. And I just gave mazel tov to a friend of mine that made chasana, and I said, after the chasana, you have to get another mazel tov for the Sheva brachos, and then another mazel tov for after the Sheva brachos. It's a constant, different things come up, new things come up, new challenges, new nachas, how to approach, it's all different levels. So we've had many programs, and here we are tonight to continue Mitzvah Hashem with every speaker brings his own insights, different approach, and I think we can all learn. There's so much to learn. Hashem grants us Kanai Nahara with kids, and every kid is different. Every kid needs what they need. I just had an interesting thought recently that talking about parenting, and not only parenting, it could be our own growth, talk about self-growth, growth for kids, our own growth. We want to come up with a system that could work for everyone. Basically, we should have a routine. It should be predictable. And then after a while, everybody knows how it works, so you don't have to work so hard. Basically, what happens, you turn the humans into a machine. You know, shouldn't have any flaws. Just set the program, and that's how it works. But I know many of us have realized that it just doesn't work that way. Each child has their own personality, their emotions, their needs, and it can't always be organized and put into a schedule. Talk about a very simple example. There are some kids, when they wake up, all they need is 2 minutes. They get dressed, eat something, and they're on the bus. And then you have the other child who, he just needs his time, just needs the time. And you're like, what's going on? You got so used to your older child, and now this younger one, you're not sure how to do this. Now, let's call him Chaim. Chaim, if you tell me it takes you a half hour, no problem. I'll wake you up a half hour earlier. And that's it. But you're in the system. But put it inside the box. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. They have their ups and downs, and every day is different. So yes, they do need routine. Us, the adults, have to be there for them while they're going on the roller coaster, on the ride. But to understand that every child is different. And if we can't see it in our own life, one day you're in the mood and one day you're not. That doesn't mean that you don't do it, but to understand how you work, what you need, your ups and downs, your rainy days and sunny days. If you don't understand it with yourself, it's probably very hard to understand it with your child. And talk about that seed that you put into the ground. It could be raining, snowing, sunny, cloudy. So there is the routine that they need, constant, to be there for them. But every day is different. I know many of you are thinking, it's too hard, I got to go to work. I have my routine. How could I be there for theirs? So it's not always that easy. So here we are talking about parenting, especially when they get older, teenagers, to connect to them, to understand them. And admit, Baruch Hashem, we have this chus to have Rabbi Greenwald with us with many, many years of experience. And again, all the Talmidim that you had, each Talmud had their own different way of listening to them, understanding them. So hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit of that you have for us to be able to approach our kids, our Talmidim, and in Menachem we should see a lot of Siyata D'Shmaya.
Beautiful opening. Okay, so we're going to get into it tonight's share. We title it, Is it Possible to Achieve Proper Parenting Alongside Unconditional Love and Freedom? Navigating Parenthood, Achieving Harmony Between God and Guidance and Freedom for Adult Teenagers. This is like the $1 million question, right? How do we balance this vart of unconditional love and freedom at the same time being a parent? I think everybody struggles at this, especially when the children start getting older at different ages. So we figured we'll bring in the master who's in this for who knows how many years, 30 plus years, to give us some guidance. I'm going to read Rabbi Chananya Greenwald's bio, and then the floor says, Chananya Greenwald, a veteran educated with decades of chinuch experience or Shiva, has been the heart of TJ since its founding. He brings with him many years of counseling experience and the derech HaTorah he absorbed from his Rabbi Muvik, Moshe Shpir, Rabbi Greenwald consistently challenges Bachram to think in ways with his daily Ian share, his weekly Vadim, lay out the foundation for Shalom Bayis and Chinuch Habanim. These shiurim are not to be missed. The warm personal touch, evident in his multifaceted role as a teacher, mentor, leader, and confidant, is the key factor in making yeshiva Tiferet the cornerstone of religious inspiration in the life of its students and alumni. His literary credits include serving as general editor of the Arba Saba and Avodot Halevi Sidurim, and he's translator for the Art Scrolls Schottenstein edition of Talmud Bavli. Ooh, I didn't know that. So it's chus to have us with you tonight, Rabbi Greenwald. I don't know which Masechta you wrote, but I probably read it. I went through a lot of it, but we'll get into that later. The floor is yours, Rabbi Greenwald.
Good evening, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to my children in Australia and grandchildren. Galia, I see you. I mean, etc. Okay, so the $1 million question, and the answer costs more than $1 million. The answer it's almost unanswerable, but we're going to try to look at it and see what we can do with it. First of all, we talk about this thing, unconditional love. Who says, like, is there a source for this? Is this like just kind of something that they created in the 20th century, the 21st century, perhaps? Where does it come from? What's going on with it? So, I was sitting with a Kale guy. He was from someplace else, but he came to speak to me. He was about 30 years old. And he was just talking about next steps. And something felt a little bit off in the conversation. I was picking up something a little uncomfortable, and I asked him, said, do you know Rebbeinu Shalom loves you? And he said, no. Who said? And I said to him, I don't know, did you daven today? He said, yes. He said, Ava Rabba Avtonu, Ava Soilam. You said it when you davened? Eternal love? Yeah. I said, what does that mean? And he started to cry. He was 30 years old. He'd been in yeshiva, fine yeshivas. He had been in Kollel for many years. He was knowledgeable. He had a lot of information, but he didn't know this. And that was really a little bit of an eye-opener. And it shouldn't have been, because it takes a lot of us a very long time to get to this knowledge. And maybe at the end we'll share a story from Rosh Shapiro, if you remind me of Usher, then we could pull it off. So where does it come from? So I was thinking of one source that there's a lot of different places you could take it from. It says it in the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that he loves us, and we say in davening, he waits to meet us. We wait to meet Shabbos, Kimshes Chosn Al Kala. The relationship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Yisrael is this relationship of love, but doesn't often feel like that. So we'll start from the very beginning. It says that in the beginning of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the way in the beginning of Bereshis, creation itself, all of b'machshava, it went up on his mind, so to speak, meaning his goal, it seems, was to create the world with Midas Hadin. Midas Hadin is strict judgment. So what does that mean, strict judgment? Strict judgment means that if you deviate from the letter of the law, you cease to exist. That's strict judgment. But of course, the Kodesh Baruch Hu saw as well that he has this will for man, but man is created as an imperfect being, deliberately. And if so, the world will not be able to endure. So Kodesh Baruch Hu put the midah of rachamim, mercy, the characteristic, the trait of mercy, together with the judgment. Mercy, the word, it's interesting, the word rachim, which is mercy, the Maharal says is the same letters as the word machar, tomorrow, and rechem, the womb, which is where the future life is built. So mercy is a means to give a person a tomorrow. Mercy is a means to allow things to endure. The great question is, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create it with strict justice, so let him create it with strict justice. And if it's not going to survive, the world will not endure, so it won't endure. After all, if what he wanted was strict justice, then let him create it with strict justice. So what's happening over here? I can't say it's the simple understanding, but perhaps maybe a more pnimi, a little bit of a deeper understanding of this, though, would tell you that he created the world to run with the system of din. And that means that we can earn what we achieve. That means that we can achieve, we can earn, we can battle, and therefore we could be almost godly in the sense that we have something called free will. But at the same time, the recognition that he created us with this potential to fail, the goal isn't the failure. Why did he create the world with them? What was the motivation before that? The motivation before that was chesed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give good, and he wants us to endure. He wants us to flourish. And sometimes we get caught in the din. Then we continue. And we're still here. And we're still going. You know, it was by no means clear that I would ever be able to take part in this podcast. On a personal note, I couldn't speak for a year. I was sick for 2. And it was a real question whether this was, I mean, it wasn't even about the podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was when I got sick. It was more about, will I ever get better again? And there was, not going to go into too many details, but there was over a year of deterioration, or about a year of deterioration. And then gradually a very slow climb back, at which point I got COVID. So there were many days where we thought that maybe it's time, and maybe we're not going to continue. And I came across in the Sefer, I came across a pshat and a pasuk in Tehillim that we say every night if we say Kriya Shema. Anisha chavti v'ishana. I went to sleep and I slept. Hekitzaisi ki Hashem yismecheni. I woke up, Hashem supported me. Shamshon Folger says, that David HaMelech said, I went to sleep and I didn't want to wake up again. It was just too hard. Maisa Batsheva, 2 sons trying to kill him, Absalom and Adoniyahu, ready to take the Melucha. People doubting his ancestry and whether he's allowed to be a king. Children who passed away on him. It's like I went to sleep and I didn't want to get up in the morning. I woke up. Ki Hashem yisnecheni. Hashem, you decided I still have something to do in the world. And so on some level, when we talk about this concept of midas hadin and midas harachamim, the rachamim is the kol oid. As long as the Kodesh Baruch Hu is still being merachim and still giving us life, that means there's still an opportunity for us to flourish. So that's where this concept of the love comes from. The love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is creating a world so we should be able to endure and to flourish. That's one of this subject is so big and it's so enormous and beyond anything that we could present, beyond anything that I can understand. I'm just going to try to give a little tiny sliver of insight into this to the best of my understanding. This is not coming from any direct pipeline from Sinai. If you disagree with something I say, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to accept it. If it resonates, great. And if it doesn't, so it's a shame. Next week, there'll be a really good speaker on and you'll get it from him. Yeah, so 1 second. I was in the middle of the Vart and I'm running away already, but I do want to say shkoyach to the hosts over here. As I said, I didn't have a lot of knowledge of this entire system of podcasting, but I did look through your list of speakers, and I hope that there's something to add after all of the incredibly talented and wise people who have spoken on your program over the years. It's a schus to be here. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're trying to, we know there's this thing called unconditional love, and he wants that Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world for love. He wants us to endure. Okay, so how do I do that? And what does that even mean? So sometimes people turn it into, and this has its place also, and I hope you'll call me on it. Sometimes people turn this into just give them anything they want. And it becomes almost weaponized in the hands of children sometimes, that they know that they're in control. And I believe this has its place as well. It's just a part of a much larger system. But the concept is that what would we do? Ask any teenager who starts to drive. How fast would you drive if you knew there were no cops on the turnpike? How fast would you drive? Would it be safe? Okay, you'll have 1 in 10 will say, he'll keep to a theoretical speed limit. 90, I could, I could drive safely. Others will say that they would test all the capabilities of their engine, and and this is the reality. When we know that there's no cops around, we drive a little bit more quickly. Many of us, especially some who haven't gotten over the teenage years, and that's what we do. So we need some kind of brakes on our system, and at the same time, it's supposed to be coming out of this place of love. So the cop doesn't really love us, does he? So again, how do we put it into our own lives? Let's start with a little child. The child cries and screams and screams. He doesn't want to go into a bath. He doesn't want to go to the doctor. He doesn't want to go to the dentist. If we allow him to be in control, then he'll never be clean. He'll never be healthy. He'll never be well. He doesn't want to get the shot that he needs. He's going to cry. I have to give it to him, right? If I have to give it to him, then he's going to cry. Where's my unconditional love? So let's try to unpack the words a little bit and make sense of them. The words themselves don't appear in the Torah, but it's called an Ava Ein Sof. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has an infinite love for us. So maybe just a couple of words on that. If I love somebody, it doesn't mean that I give him the reins or control. And it doesn't mean I'm not the parent anymore. It means that my desire for him is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's desire for us is, that he should flourish. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to flourish. He's given us a system in how to flourish. If we simply take all of the options available to us, every single thing that we have access to, we become entitled and spoiled. We become unhealthy. We become a horror to live with. If, on the other hand, we get nothing and we feel we have nothing, and we feel that the world is punitive, and that's all that there is, we also feel that there's nothing to live for. This 30-year-old guy who was talking to me, he was almost like a teenage nishpa. He was almost like a child who had been brought up in a different religion. Here he was, 30 years old, and he didn't know that Rebbeinu Shalom loved him. What religion was he brought up in? Now, the fact that he didn't know it doesn't mean it was never said to him. Hare, he said it every day in davening multiple times. But somehow or another, the message didn't get through. There is a story about Rabbi Lapian that he was very mocked that the boy should show up on time for davening. He put his stender next to the door so he should see every boy come in. And one time a boy climbed through the window so he shouldn't be able to see him. Okay, Rabbi Lapian wasn't a youngster. He knew everything that there was to know about the behavior of the youngsters, and he called him over after davening. And he said to him, so when did you come to davening? So the boy said, by Ashrei. What did he mean? He wasn't lying. He meant by Ashrei of Alatzion after Shmona Esrei. So Revelia picked up that the boy was trying to fool him. So he said, something about, he referenced the trickery, and he said, this is not a refined way to behave with this trickery. And then he said to the boy, if you knew how much I love you, I would give you a slap. Because magia lecha, you're supposed to get a slap for your behavior. But you don't know how much I love you. And because you don't understand that, you're not zeiche to a punishment that comes from Av. When I'm hearing the story, I'm feeling so insignificant. Wow. You're not zeiche to a punishment that comes from Av. Because if I'm going to give you this punishment, you won't know I love you. So I can't give it to you. But you're going to lose the benefit of it. And you're going to lose the message that you had to get. It's all the things we're going to speak about, I think, on some level, aspirational, because it's difficult to really be holding in all these kinds of places. But it's a direction, and it's I saw once a very wise saying that man can't reach the stars, but he can navigate by them. And so this is an idea that any of us who have to be mechanech, we want to give the child love, we want him to flourish, we want him to benefit. At the same time, we recognize that giving him everything that he wants, he doesn't have the wisdom to know what he wants, just like we often don't have the wisdom to know what we want or what would be good for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides what it is that we need, and he wakes us up in the morning. It means that he still has hope and a trust in us that we can flourish.
Okay, beautiful, Rabbi Greenwald. Okay, let's take a poll. We're going to take a poll. It's 3 questions. I think it's still messed up, Menachem, but we'll see. Let's not through lunch. Yeah, it always does the same twice. I have to figure out how to fix that. Menachem, you can see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question always gets messed up. We'll have to figure out why. But what level of technology do you think is it okay to give your kids? Number 1 answer is option A, nothing at all. Option B was like Jewish videos, MP3s, 24/6. There was a third option, which was basically a filtered smartphone, but it's not on there right now. So just choose from the 2 that are there. Number 2, what level of relationship should we have with our children? Not a friendship relationship, but they know that I'm the parent. Number 2, going out with them and having fun as a friend. Or number 2, going out and having fun as a parent. Third question. Is it possible to achieve proper parenting alongside unconditional love and freedom? Yes. Option A, yes, it's possible to balance all 3 effectively. Option 2, no. One aspect will always be compromised. Option 3, maybe it depends on individual circumstances and parenting styles. Option 4, I'm not sure. I have no opinion. Those are the 3 questions. Everybody give your opinion. Vote. Yeah. Right. I don't know. It does it every week. Okay, give it a few more seconds. Everybody vote, and then we'll share it. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's share the polls. Okay, so on the first question, which is a little messed up, basically 17% of people feel what level of technology is it okay to give your kids? 17% of people feel you shouldn't give your kids any technology. And I guess the other 83% feel that you could do Jewish videos and MP3s and 24/6. That's the general consensus. There was a third answer, smartphone with filter. I'll read through the answers, Rabbi Greenwald. If you want to chime in, please do. What level of relationship should we have with our kids? 6% said not a friendship relationship. They should know that I'm the parent. 2% said going out with them as a friend. And 92% of people say going out with them and having fun as a parent. Third question, is it possible to achieve proper parenting alongside unconditional love and freedom? 55% of people say yes, it's possible to balance all 3 effectively. 9% said no, one aspect will always be compromised. The third answer, which was 32%, maybe it depends on individual circumstances and parenting style. And 4% of people, they're not even sure what they're doing here tonight. So those are the options. Rabbi Greenwald, any comments on any of these polls?
So I think I agree with everyone. So much depends, I think, on communities, the reality of the home, the reality of the parents. I think one thing that Baruch Hashem, I'm at this point a grandparent. My children are all grown, although not all married. But one thing I learned is that different kids really need different things, and different kids respond to different things. And on some level, there's like a level of purity that we really always hope for, but then we have to be real about where we ourselves live and how we ourselves live. because I think the most important lesson that I learned, and I'm trying to continue learning, because new events, even with adult children, require one to continually reevaluate, is that you can only be you. And your biggest kayach is to be you. Because Baruch Hu gave you these children, gave us these children, and to those he didn't give yet, he should give soon. And I can give my child all kinds of pre-digested ideas from other people. I could give them all kinds of knowledge that we picked up along the way, but I could really mostly give myself. And it has to be coming from a true place. You know, since Simchas Torah, every single day, nobody's not, I mean, everybody 2-3 times a day at least, you know, Shir Amalos Mima Makim Kurasicha Hashem. What's Mima Makim? What does it mean? It means from the depths. You know, you hear it so many times, sometimes it doesn't even mean anything. The depths mean wherever I am, because Baruch Hu has a place for me in his world to connect to him. I can't get outside of his Bria. There's enough of him to go around, so to speak, for whoever we are and whatever place we are. And so sometimes we don't feel him, and from that place, we reach out to him. From the place where we don't feel him, where we don't see him, where we feel hated, not loved. And that's Mima Makim. And so it's, can I say it's the same thing for parenting on some level, that we're the parent of our child, like Kodesh Baruch Hu is our parent? We try to the best of our ability, to be very real with them. We don't have to share every doubt with him. David HaMelech says, it says in Tehillim that Imamati Asapra Kemoi, Metzudah says, if I tell my children exactly what it is, every bad thought I ever had, then that'll be a betrayal of them. Because we also have a process and a system. But we have to be able to recognize that just as we have our doubts and we have our difficult times and we have our struggles, so do our kids. And we thought as young parents that I'm going to be able to save my child from the Yetzer Hara, I'm going to be able to save him from all the things I went through, I'm going to be able to save him from all of those processes, I'm going to be able to save him because I'm going to do it right. And I have news that is probably not news to anybody. Even if you do it right, the child still has to develop his own relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. He still has to figure out a way to connect. He still has to figure out a way to make sense, because Baruch Hu is going to send him his challenges. He's going to suffer from them. Sometimes you'll feel like you're a bad parent because your child is suffering. And if I would have given him this, and if I would have given him that, and if I would have given him... Sometimes it could be it's true. Very often it's just part of the reality that even though we want to give our child everything, there are a lot of things that our child has to come through. So what level of technology is okay for them? Well, I think it just so much depends on what's the level in the home, how is the child working within the system that he's in, how are things working for him. So which answer do I agree on? All of them. Maybe more common is when a child gets his own phone and the parents didn't know about it. I don't know if it's more common. I don't know the numbers. I imagine I've heard enough over the years to know that this does happen. And okay, maybe we could get to that in a minute. We could talk about that. But you know, that's when all the things have broken down. So where do we go with that? Should I jump to the next? What was the next question? Level of relationship?
Yep.
Not a friendship relationship. They have to know I'm the parent. Going out.
Everybody's feeling that everybody should go out with their kids and have fun as a parent, not as a friend, and not to just have a very parent structure relationship.
Yeah. So really, I think I agree with that. I think it's also true that when we talk about a friend, there's different ages that the child is at. I remember many years ago as a teenager, a friend saying to me, my parents love me, but they don't like me. And it was such a dagger. I felt terrible. Your parents love you, but they don't like you. I can't say the person was the most likable person ever, but usually b'cholzos, right? A parent, but sometimes that's true. And so what was going on over there and what was missing over there? So I think that there is room for what we call reus, friendship, because Baruch Hu sometimes called the Reya, even the friend of Klal Yisrael, and like we said, the Chassan Kalo of Klal Yisrael. And so there are times even that the parental relationship, sometimes it morphs into friendship. Sometimes it's I enjoy spending time with them. So when they're children, it's one thing. As they get older, and they have opinions, and they know a lot of things that you don't know. And so then, what's my vision of being a parent? If my vision of being a parent is that I'm the all-knowing one, and I answered all their questions when they were 6, and then I try to answer all their questions when they were teenagers. I had such the experience was a bit sharp, but it remains with me all these years. I think it was great chinuch on my mother's part. She should live and be well. We were at the doctor's office, and the doctor started engaging me in a question of hashkafa, and I was about 20 years old, and I started arguing with him vociferously. And at one point, he turns to my mother and says, well, Mrs. Greenwald, what do you think? She says, well, I'm not a teenager, so I don't know everything anymore. And I was like, wow, ma, ad hominem attack. But I think it was also the right thing to say. And it's true, like we think that we think that we know everything, then we're parents and we have to know everything. No, we don't know everything. And it's okay not to know everything. And it's important to recognize that we don't know everything. And so sometimes the relationship shifts a little bit. Like, what does it mean to be a parent? Yeah, but my child needs friendship now. He doesn't need parenting in the way he needed it before. So sometimes I think that, they need us to be the friend, but they need us to be the older, wiser friend, or the friend who at least can be a place for them and a base for them and a source for them. So I'm not really saying that. I'm not really saying yes. I'm saying that a lot depends on how we define the words. So if that's kind of responsive, then we'll leave it with that. And finally, is it possible to achieve proper parenting, unconditional love, and freedom? A lot of positivity over here. It's possible to balance all three effectively. No one aspect will always be compromised. Maybe it depends on individual circumstances and parenting styles. I think so. I think a lot depends on our skills. In other words, we learn all these different things about how to do things. Anything you need to know how to do, you can Google it, and there'll be a whole array of 40,000 websites telling you how in 3 steps or in 5 steps or in 2 steps you're going to be able to do this. And it's giving hope to people who don't have hope sometimes, but I think we can aspire to be that, and I think we can aspire to have that. At times we put conditions on. One of the most powerful. Okay, maybe we'll hold it as a kamavis ava. Maybe we'll hold it and we'll come back to it. Or should I go there now, Coach Menachem?
No, let's get into the questions. Let's get some questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question somebody sent in, I'm struggling with some of my teenagers on different levels. I'm hearing about the concept of unconditional love. I really don't understand it. Let them do whatever they want. And when I try doing that, it creates a lot of chaos in the house. And just love them for what am I exactly loving them? Unconditional love while they're doing whatever, which I don't approve of. So, they're struggling with their kids because they're becoming teenagers and they're trying to navigate this thing, but they don't understand it. And it seems to cause a lot of chaos in a lot of other parts of the house at the same time.
Yeah. So, especially if there's a few at a time, it's really hard to divide and conquer.
Also, when you have one and one you're doing this mahalach with, the other one say, why not do the same thing?
Yeah. So really, I think that this concept of, like we said, unconditional love does not necessarily mean, except in very extreme circumstances, does not mean just allowing them to do whatever they want. Like we said, the child doesn't want to take his shot, and he needs to get it. He's crying and screaming. He thinks he's the cruelest parent in the world. It's not fair. Unconditional love means that I unconditionally want you to flourish. It doesn't mean that I want you to behave without conditions. When I punish, when I make a boundary, I'm making the boundary for your benefit. Now, that said, we make a lot of boundaries in theory and realize in the real world that they might not work. So then we have to adjust and reassess. We can't always just stick with it just because we thought that it was going to work and then it didn't. And, well, my child will never have sweets. My child will never have, okay, then you find that somehow or another the child has sweets. Even worse, the parent eats the sweets, but the child can't. Right? The father in shul who when the son speaks, gives him a clap, and then he speaks to his friend. Nothing's happened over here except that he's taught the child that when if he goes to shul, that he should give his kid a clap, while he talks during that. So our process of dealing with them is the first thing. Okay, we're talking about teenagers here, even before they're teenagers. What are they saying? What's happening? What are they saying? It says that in Devarim, it talks about when Yisro talks over Yisro's advice to Moshe Rabbeinu, and then Moshe says, okay, so the difficult thing, bring to me ushemativ, and I'll hear it. It doesn't even say he's going to tell them what to do. He says, I'm going to hear it. The first thing is being able to engage in conversation with them. Sometimes a child's even afraid to engage in conversation because they don't think it's going to go anywhere. But they have to know that there's somebody who's really, really listening. And this is the hardest thing because as parents, we're used to lecturing, telling them what to do. After all, it's our job to be mechanech them. Yeah, but in order to be mechanech a person according to his way, we have to know what his way is. We have to hear them, what's going on. It doesn't mean that we make sense of everything that they say in the same way they do. So I'm having a hard time with this, so I'm not going to do it. Oh, so yeah. Okay. Well, let's hear the hard time. Let's hear that they're having the hard time. Let's feel that they're having the hard time. Let's be in touch with that time. What does the child think we could do about it? How does he think we could make sense of it? Can we have a house with no rules? What kind of chaos will ensue? So again, a lot depends on what's happening and what the nature of the home is, what the nature of the relationship is, what the nature of the community is. All these things play a role, right? How is the child managing in school, in his life, in his relationship with his siblings, in his friendships? There are so many other pieces to take into consideration when we make the decision, and it's hard parenting because there is no manual. But there's no manual for friendship either. There's even no manual. Even the Torah is a manual, yeah. But sometimes it says that you have to be mochiach a person, you have to rebuke them, and sometimes it says it's a mitzvah to say something that will be heard. Sometimes it's a mitzvah not the same mitzvah not to say something that won't be heard. One of the biggest, most difficult things, I think, is learning to bite your lip and to listen. Sometimes you bite your lip for a few years. Your teeth start to come through. Bite your lip. Listen. What's he saying? What's happening? What's happening to me when he says it? I get all activated and scared and what's going to be with shidduchim? What's going to be with the school? And what's going to be? One second. What's he saying? There's a place for him to connect to Rebbeinu Shalom also. There's a place for her to connect to Rebbeinu Shalom also. My job is to figure out a way to make sure that connection stays in place.
Rabbi Greenwald. Okay, let's go to the first live question. You're on. How are you?
Hi, good evening. Is the sound okay?
Yeah.
Rabbi Greenwald, amazing, amazing. Thank you. I have a quick question. So during your personal time of recovery, right? So you had your own personal challenges, so to speak. How was your parenting style different or the same, if anything, as you were going through your own?
Well, okay, let's do some breathing exercises here. I'm going to just calm myself to talk about So, okay, first of all, much of what happened was that my children and my wife took care of me. So, sometimes there's this role reversal when we're taking care of elderly parents, which my wife was also doing. It was during COVID, and my wife had to take care of her parents who were in already their 90s or close to them. And my children, well, one of them is a nurse and another is a speech therapist. I lost my voice for a year. Another is, Baruch Hashem, they were taking care of me. They were fantastic. To the best of my ability, I tried to be there for them. But I couldn't even, at different points, like there were points that they were just protecting me. They took away the phone. People would call for advice or help, and I wasn't even able to talk. And not only that, they had to protect me from the news, and they had to protect me from all the stories of death and dying because I was so close to that myself, and they were afraid that was what was going to happen to me. And I just tried to be there. When they came in, to love them, to let them see my love for them. I have a yeshiva. There were days that I was strong enough to go in the course of the year. I'd go to yeshiva. One of my kids would bring me. I'd walk into the yeshiva. I'd give hugs to whoever was in the base medrash. I'd turn around and I'd go home. That was my job. And some guys who really needed to talk and some couples who really needed to speak. Most of them, I wasn't able to do that. And with my kids, I always tried to, but I think they were so intent on protecting me that most of the time it wasn't really an issue. But it was just a lot of expressions of how much I love them. And it's not always enough. It doesn't mean I can help them. I just want them to know that there's someone who really loves them. And that was like but again, like my kids are a little bit older, so it didn't play out in the same way.
It's like you're saying, when somebody listens, sometimes they can give over much more. As a person should imagine that he can talk,
Oh.
We can talk, but by not talking, going into this message, giving the hugs, listening, you were able to give much more many times. And I think this is a lesson that you're trying to bring out. We have to learn how to listen. And that can be very hard because we have so much to say.
I'm going to tell a story here. It's very important what you're saying. When one of my this was like, how did you learn to parent? So I learned a lot of things from my parents, extremely wise, special people. But then put it into play in a different world, in a different universe, in a different and also like every generation kind of responds to the earlier generation, and they're sure that they figured out, how to take it to that next level. One of my children, one of my older children, she was at the fridge looking at something. She was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and she was already starting to worry about what girls worry about at that age, like, is it fattening? Is it that and that? And then she's looking in the fridge for something yummy to eat. And so I kind of walked by and, very discreetly commented to her that, are you going to be happy that you ate it after you ate it? Said the guy who weighed 280 pounds. So she looked at me and she says, Tati, do you think I don't know that? And I said, wow. And I just stopped, like in my tracks. And I said, are you trying to tell me that I'm not helping you by making that comment? She said, yes. And also, it makes me feel like I don't want to listen. Even though I want to listen to you, it makes me feel like I don't want to. And I said, wow. This is like an amazing moment of learning to be a parent. You don't need to know. I don't need to tell you something you know. you're struggling it with yourself. All I'm doing is adding to the noise. I'm not creating harmony, I'm creating noise, cacophony. And so I tried never to tell her again anything about what she should eat. Whether I made the mistake in other places with all the rest of them and with her as well, probably. But it's such a fascinating thing. Like, we just think that we have to comment because we're the parent and we know. Yeah, but we've told this to them. They also know. I remember that my father, Rabbi Chananya Greenwald, the great legendary figure, would speak someplace, and my brother and I would look at each other, my older brother and I, Rabbi Chananya, and people would be coming over like ready to be mockery of their firstborns to my father, like they couldn't believe what my father said. And we looked at each other and said, what did he say? Like, isn't this so obvious? Well, it might have been so obvious to us because these were the lessons that we grew up with. And so we didn't understand what the chiddush of it was. So when we heard it, we were just hearing the same old joke or the same old story or the same old insight. And for most people, it was, wow. So in a sense, like when we're starting to tell our kids stuff, they could say it better than we can. They're already 2.0. So sometimes this thing you said that, just making believe you can't speak. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Let's go to the next question. Ellie.
Hey, Rabbi. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Usher, for providing this platform, for giving us the opportunity to work on perfecting ourselves as parents. Rabbi, I have a question on the topic of proper parenting. I'm currently planning on making Aliyah with my family this summer, and I've heard many people tell me that kids in Eretz Yisrael have a greater sense of independence there, almost like the way kids were in the 1950s in the U.S. Now, as American parents of kids in today's age, we're taught to look back on those parents in the 1950s as if they were crazy. It used to be that before the 10 p.m. news on the television, it would say, it's 10 p.m., do you know where your children are? Parents nowadays can't fathom that it really used to be like that, and even more, that it was actually okay. My question is, who are the crazy ones? Parents in the 1950s or parents today?
When I was in school, now, if you go back and you do the math, that would have been about 30 years ago, maybe 50. A kid misbehaved. I don't know how many people could relate to this. And to some people, I'll give a trigger warning over here. A kid will behave. Let's say his name was, I need a name that nobody here has. So, I used to always say, yeah, Yanko. And then my son-in-law says to me, hello?
Do Coach Menachem. Nobody has that name. Coach Menachem.
Coach, they would say, and if Coach Menachem would misbehave, one of the rules in yeshiva is that when somebody puts forward somebody else to do a job, we have to do it to him. Like he has to bear the weight. So like if Usher said, had misbehaved in school, we would have had to, the teacher, they used to go like this. Do you remember this? Shame, shame on us, shame, shame. I don't know if anybody remembers this. This is like maybe from my generation. Shame, shame. I mean, today, child parental services, the family services, what? Father would come down, he'd give a beating to the Rebbe, like, what? If the Rebbe did that to my kid, I would want to throw napalm on his house. I'm overreacting, but I would overreact. What? But that's the way they used to do it, and it was considered normal. So who was crazy? I think we're all crazy. We've been in goals for 2,000 years. Every generation is trying to react to the traumas of the previous generation. Goals is a time of trauma. It's a time of difficulty. There's I came across a ritva in Rosh Hashanah. I'll share this very quickly about blowing the shofar. The Gemara has a whole discussion. What constitutes a shivarim? What constitutes the sound of crying, of sobbing, of different cries? And there's all these different opinions. So the ritva said, well, I don't understand the question. What did they just do in the last generation? And he said, just like every generation has its music, and every generation has its expression. So the question was, after the Churban, What's going to be the expression that we're going to codify, that we're going to set in place? And so it wasn't just our fathers who said to us, "You play music?" Right? Beethoven's father said that to him too. Every generation learns a new set of tools. And we have to navigate within the norms of the world, of our world, which has gotten much more difficult for Americans who grew up in a world of, like, where things seem to be kind of balanced. And then today the world's gone off the rails entirely. And up is down and down is up and right is left and left is right. And there's no truth and there's no system and there's no in so much of society. And of course, it's gotten very, very complicated. And as a result, we're trying to create our own bubble within this world outside. And it's really, really complicated. So who's crazy? We're all crazy. And we're all trying our best to be balanced in this lopsided world. So if that's what the society is doing, don't call it crazy. Again, your society, your community. You come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to be able to embrace the community that you're going to some degree, and you have to be able to move within norms. Obviously, like somebody said to me, "What's it like to bring your kid up in Har Nof or in Eretz Yisrael?" I said, "I brought my child up in my house. My house in Eretz Yisrael." And so I would say that has to continue to be true, but you have to be in touch with the world there, and you can't be contemptuous, you can't disregard, you can't be dismissive of what's going on in the world that your children are growing up in.
So what you're saying is that even if we think that something may be crazy, it doesn't mean that that's wrong.
Often. There are things that really get to values and not to habits and not to general expectations. And those things are wrong. Somebody embarrassing somebody in public. No, that's still wrong.
Right.
That didn't change.
Right.
Shame. They thought that was chinuch, maybe. I'm not sure.
Right.
Then you could be the moderating voice that bring the teachers to the next generation.
I'll leave that for other people. Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye, Ellie.
Okay, Rabbi Greenwald, let's go to the next question. You're on.
First of all, shalom to Rabbi Greenwald, the former Talmud. Yeah, Tzvi Tolchis. How's it going, Rabbi? I was actually in TJ together with Ellie Miller, who just asked a question right now. Lots of Hakar Satov to TJ. My question is, how does one balance, obviously when we have a child, especially when they get older, and then you need to make adjustments, and sometimes extreme adjustments for the child, differing from how you're bringing up the rest of your family, especially when they're the older child. How do you balance that then with the expectations and the atmosphere of the rest of the children, while still trying to make all the adjustments and changes and things that you would allow for the other child that they need, while balancing it with the rest of the kids in the house?
Your parents did a fabulous job with you, Tzvi. I'm saying, take some notes.
Yeah, I hear.
First of all, Al Pitesh Taras Imecha. That's an important thing. But if we could just get a little more specific over here. In other words, you have to give the kid the kid gets, the house has changed. Let's say we didn't buy candies, right? And then we have kids who are 14 years old. They're going to school and they're going out and buying candies with their own babysitting money, right? Can we give that kind of example? Or you want something a little bit more? Are you talking about greater values than that? Or are you talking about? I need a little more.
I'm asking more for extreme cases, like the teenagers who then are struggling with Yiddishkeit, and you're making extreme concessions to try to accommodate that child in what you need. And it's not small little adjustments in the house as the kids get older, like major adjustments that you'd have to be making for a child that you would never really do otherwise in your house.
Right.
Or allow for your child.
Right.
Let's give an example. You have a kid that's 15, 16, and for whatever reason you have to get him an iPhone, or you have to let him go to movies, whatever. and you're trying to raise all your 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds, and it's such this is where it gets very complicated. So though you're coming to the realization that you have to do that for that child, how are you navigating that with the rest of the children?
Okay, so this is always the hard one, and I think it starts with trying to have a relationship with that. Like, if we have a relationship with that child, it's a lot easier. If we're able to discuss with that child, like, what are we doing and what do you understand and what do we have to do for the other children, and how can I make you a partner in helping that? Because I know that you need this right now, so I'm doing this. Your other siblings, right, at this stage, they don't need it. This is our decision. And this is the way we want to do things. And this is the way we feel we need to do things. And sometimes the kid might push back and say, well, it didn't work for me, you know. Okay. Everybody's different, right? Don't you always tell us everybody's unique? You're unique also. And this is what we're doing because we love you and we want you to flourish and we want you to benefit. And, you know, one of those cringy kind of conversations. This is how we need you to help us with this. You know, this stays in your room. You don't play that music out loud. That's only with headphones. You don't look at your clips or your videos when you're in the room with the other kids, because we're still trying to see if that the confusion and all the various different pieces that come together with that, if we can still protect them from that. So I need your help.
So even also then when you're doing that though, but then it's very obvious to the other children
That's
what
right.
the child has access to, how do you all then also present that to those other children, etc.?
Depends on their ages, of course, and it depends what's going on with them. And sometimes it's, you know, this is what's going on. This is what's necessary. We don't think, you know, we have to realize, in a sense, kind of what we can and what we can't control. And accepting that, and then, okay, so how do I move forward from here? Right? And really, that's what you're asking. But what's my leverage? If my only leverage is a nuclear weapon, throwing the child out of the house, that's a nuclear weapon. We don't want to pull that out. The same way we don't want to hit. That's a nuclear weapon. You reserve that for last resort. So then, okay, so what do I have? And with the other children, depending on their age, there's conversations with them, right? And this is what, I don't know, whatever the child, this is what Coach Menachem needs right now. So this is what we're giving him. And this is what you need, and this is what we're giving you. And you do have to spend time and give special attention, so to speak, to the kids who are doing well, so they don't feel that the way to get attention is by misbehaving. And I know that that's difficult because sometimes the other one can be sapping a lot of resources. But even if it's 15 minutes a week, that's the time for this other child, that nothing else intrudes, not the phone and not the phone calls and not anything else. You go with them, whether you talk with them, you read with them, you learn with them, you bike with them, whatever it could be. So you could jump over cars on your bike with them. Whatever it is, that's something that you give them. And that would be the way I would try to handle a very difficult situation to navigate between.
Okay. Beseder?
So what you're saying is a relationship, to have that open communication with no matter, you know, the child is struggling and the other kids, have the relationship, open communication, understanding what's going on, what works. Here's an interesting question. Well, making it more practical. Talking about how do I set the boundaries, and if they don't listen. So we don't like to use the word punish, right? But somebody sent in a question if they're allowed. So, you know, not to use that word punish, but how do I set that boundaries? So with the unconditional love that you want to give them, but on the other hand, when they don't, you know, follow, what do you do then?
What's the leverage? One of the most important questions is, what's the leverage? In other words, what's the nature of the relationship? Does the child recognize my authority? If not, we're dealing with a completely different situation. I'll tell a story about many years ago. A parent called me enraged that his child had not been in chakras in a few weeks. He was in yeshiva, and the child had told him he had not been in chakras in a few weeks, and the parent was enraged. And he called me up like, "What kind of yeshiva are you running?" And I said to him, "What he went to chakras with you when he lived at home?" He said he never missed. I said, "Wow, how come?" He said, "I never let him miss." I said, "So why is he missing now?" He said, "Because you're not making him go." I said, "Okay, so he was by you for the first 18 years of his life, and he never missed shachris, and the year he got away from you, he stopped going. So if he comes to me, and I just repeat what you did, so now he's going to start going next year when he's free and he's in college. Now it's all going to be okay when he's not under your thumb anymore." So I didn't, raise him. I inherited him at the age of 18. So now I'm trying to adjust to the reality of somebody who doesn't want to daven. Perhaps because he was forced to daven. Certainly, almost certainly because he was forced to daven. And he never really davened. He showed up in shul and he sat there because he was under his father's thumb. So when we talk about so we have to find a way, can we create a desire for the thing in this child now? So I have to look at the reality of my child. Where is he? Is he listening? Is he not listening? If he's not, how can I still be a parent to him? And at that point, sometimes we get to these places where if there's some leverage, and by leverage, I don't mean forcing him so much as something that he recognizes as being within the parental rights or within the parental system, and there's something that he recognizes and sees. So I could work with him with that. And I could say, "Look, you're asking me to pay for your phone. This is the way you're going to have to use it if you want me to pay for it. And I'm happy to pay for it. But I need you to use it this way." So you have to know what else is happening and what else is going on. If he's absolutely adamant and he's not, so then I decide, do I still want to be the parent to this child? I mean, of course I still want to be the child. What I mean is so now how can I parent? What can I give him? And that brings us maybe to sometimes when the situation has gotten so out of control, often due to some real terrible deep pain and trauma that a child has gone through. And often that's a contributing factor in things getting so far out of control. So besides trying to get help for ourselves and for the child, at that point, sometimes I just have to show the child my love for him. And since the only language he's going to understand in this love is my giving him a lot of space and a lot of kindness. In my uncle's sefer, Eitzos V'Hadrachos, actually came out in English, 2 volumes with Truth and Love. Rabbi Chananya Greenwald. It's an extraordinary sefer. Moshe Shapiro wrote the most beautiful hakdama to it. He says, and he told me many times, he said, if we have a relationship with our children, we'll never lose them. They might not always do what we want them to do. But if we have the relationship, we're not going to lose them. And the relationship has to be first. And based on that, we can demand, we can build, we can suggest, we can encourage. So much depends on that. And he brings a pasuk from Shir Shir. Aza kamoves ahava. A love as brazen, as indomitable as death. Love that's as powerful as death. What does that even mean? And he says, the Medrash says, the Sifri says that when Hashem says Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be taken from Klal Yisrael, they said, we're not going to let him go. We're going to hold him here with our tefillah, with our koach. And Hashem took Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael, in front of all Klal Yisrael. There's nothing that could get in the way. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides it's time for a person to go. Aza kamoves ava. Ava is so powerful that when there's real ava, pure ava, not the ava which is tluya bedover, not the ava which is dependent on other things, pure love, I want my child to flourish for him, not for the neighbors, not for the shidduch, not for what they'll say, not even for my other kids, but for him, because I love him, I love her so much, and I want them to be okay. Nothing could get in the way of that force. It may take time. It's not one moment of love that necessarily does it. It's the repeating of it. It's the process of it. Sometimes, we'll finish this idea with this. It's sometimes like a kid does something. We remember having with my wife the conversation. Do we want to stop the behavior or do we want to get at what's underneath the behavior? Because we could stop the behavior by just being very tough on it. And then it'll stop. So it'll pop up someplace else. That need will pop up someplace else. So we want to get to the behavior underneath it, the insecurity underneath it, or the neediness underneath it, or whatever it is. Okay. It might take 2 or 3 years to do that. So we have to be very patient in the meantime. A lot of biting the lip. But the love, it has to be aza, kamoves ava. It's an unstoppable force when the nefesh of the father, the mother, is open to the child. And like we said, sometimes that means doing what the world thinks is unconditional love and giving the child everything because he's so traumatized, he can't understand anything else. And so sometimes it has to be done. If you have a sunburn and somebody slaps you on the back, your reaction will be very different than when somebody slaps you on the back. Stop. The sunburn, that slap feels like an assault. The other person, it feels like an act of friendship. Sometimes the child, and we don't always know this, not as parents and not as mechanchim. We make mistakes. So many times I said, I wish I had known a little bit more about this boy before we did what we did. Or even about my own kids. I wish I knew that was what she was going through or he was going through before we made that decision. Because we make mistakes, but some children, they're sunburned. And a slight tap on the back feels like an assault. And so we have to really know, we have to really listen. Usher, back to you.
Gewaldic. Okay, another live question. You're on.
Hi, Erev Tov, Rabbi Greenwald. You see a lot of Bachrim and a lot of American couples, young couples come to Eretz Yisrael, and you deal with them and you experience as they mature. What would you love for American parents and Moros and Rabbeim to know or to do better? Something that you think we're failing as chutzniks, the young generation, boys and girls who are smart and capable and talented, but there's something that we could do better as parents, as a community, to prepare the boys and girls. Could be academic skills, could be emotional maturity, anything. But what could we do better to grow as a community, as people?
I only see a very small slice of the community. So I don't even know if that's where you're coming from. That's what you're asking from. What I feel like is a challenge that we encounter a lot. So many kids who don't know who they are. They've been in the system and they're kind of moving forward in it. And there's so many great things about it. And like you said, there's so much information and so much positive stuff. And, when I was a kid, there was Kalbach, Mordechai Ben David, but there was nothing. The world of Jewish entertainment was very sparse. There was very little. Today, it's so big, it's so broad. There's so much stuff going on. So much stuff is happening outside of us. And being able to give a child the gift of himself by being really ourselves with them and the honesty that we have with them and the acceptance of their emotions I see like it's hard. We want to give our kids everything. We want to save them often from suffering. And therefore, sometimes we, instead of empowering them, we weaken them. It's interesting, the word for Gemilas Chasadim, which is bestowing kindness, giving kindness. and it's giving this process of wanting the other to have everything. It has the same word has as its root. We see by Yitzchak Avinu, Vayihi biyom higomel les Yitzchak, on the day that Yitzchak was weaned, he stopped nursing. So on the one hand, it's the word for giving life, on the other hand, it's the word for taking it away and stopping feeding the child, and the mother now is separating from the child. And the concept is, like the Rambam says, the highest level of tzedakah is to give a person a job. And that's the highest level of tzedakah. You make the person self-sufficient. I think in the world outside, they say, give a person a fish, you've fed him a meal, teach him to fish, and you gave him a means of livelihood or a sport for a lifetime or something along those lines. Gemilas chasodim, to be gomel chesed, is that I'm raising somebody to be independent. And that really requires that he actually know himself. It doesn't mean that he has a credit card and he's able to swipe it.
Do you feel that's mostly incumbent on the parents or the yeshiva Beis Yaakov system, or equally together?
Ideally, the whole concept of chinuch is to Chanukah Sabayis. The whole concept of chinuch is to build a foundation that they should be able to build on top of that. So I think everybody, to the extent possible, what they're trying to give the child is what I think that needs to be given to this child, and what I wish that more children were getting, with a sense that it's okay to be them. They don't have to be like everyone else. They don't have to do it exactly the same. They don't have to fit some kind of, picture perfect image of what people are, but they have to be able to know themselves and build themselves from there. Because anytime you're building from a place that's not really the ground floor, you're not really building. You're building something up in the air, and you're holding it up with your expectations. But the moment that you move away, that entire building falls because it's not on a foundation. So we have to help them find their foundation. Who are they? And from that place, build.
Yeshikayach.
Okay, Rabbi Greenwald, some real powerful questions coming. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure that you're up. That
when I say I'm ready to hear it. I don't know that I'm ready to answer it.
Okay.
We pived out this one, yeah.
Let's see.
What's the question?
Here we go. Hello. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I was wondering, what chizuk does Rabbi Greenwald have for teens whose parents don't give them love and don't show that affection? I'm struggling a lot now, but my parents, I feel like the only way that they'll give the love is if I go off the derech and just show it outright, but I don't show that, and I'm firm on all the rest, and I'm struggling internally, but they don't give that. So all they give is rejection. So how do I deal with that?
First of all, the fact that you're holding on, that's incredible. You clearly have something to you that is unusual. Told a story recently. I'm just going to share a story with you. Many years ago, my father got sick. He had a pulmonary embolism and a triple bypass. It was a complicated situation. And we were in the hospital, and he was in a local hospital it was a very local hospital. And it was proposed that we move him to a much better hospital. And we were trying to get the doctor at the hospital to call the surgeon in the good hospital, and we were trying to move him to Columbia Presbyterian, and we were trying to get him to make the call to connect, so we should be able to move the child. And he was a little bit offended. even though he knew that his local hospital wasn't quite the same. And he was a Catholic. And I said to him, doctor, I said, I only have one father. I said, I stopped. I said, no, I only have one father down here. I have one father up there, and he doesn't need my help, and he doesn't need your help. And I have one father down here, and he needs your help. And I'm asking you to please make that phone call to give my father the best chance at life. And he called. And Baruch Hashem, my father survived for another 8 years, Baruch Hashem. If your father down here isn't able to give you what you need, and your mother down here isn't able to give you what they need, they just gave you life, you need to connect to Rabbi Chananya. You need to go to your father in heaven, to talk to him, you need to beg him, you need to cry to him. Just allowing yourself to do that will take a lot of weight off. It will not make your situation easy. Well, look for mentors. I feel like you're going to be the one to break the cycle. Like if your parents are doing this, I can only imagine what their parents did. The damage of the Holocaust and Gullus and what it's done to us, it hasn't been calculated yet, how great it is and how it continues through further generations and how it's spread even to people who weren't survivors. And we're a bit of a traumatized nation. And what you're going through is horrible. But you're going to break the cycle. You're going to get healthy. You're going to get help, whether it'll be through school, through one teacher that understands, just one, an older friend who understands, just one. And you're going to break that cycle. It's Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you that you should be able to build something different. And you're going to give your kids what you couldn't get.
Amen.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a breath from that one. That's a lot, yeah. Let's digest that. Okay, there's another live question. I just want to say a word that I heard once that people get divorced, and a lot of questions people ask, the fathers does this to the kids, or the parents, when the parents are nifter, and there's missing a kid. And a famous word that somebody said is that there's 3 shutzim in a child. There's a father and a mother and a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And when one of those or 2 of those are not capable, everybody has a 33% partnership in that child. When one of them is not available, then that other partner has to pick up the slack for that one. So when a child doesn't have a parent, whether they're not here or emotionally not there, the Hashem has more cries for that child. So I thought it was a good word.
Right, the Kadosh Baruch Hu commands us to step in those places as well. I heard Rav David Cohen once said, he used to quote Rav Hutner, that they said everything has value in the world. So what's the value of a kafir? He says, the value of a kafir is when your friend is suffering, don't say to Rebbeinu Shalom, we'll take care of him. Say, I have to take care of him. So Kadosh Baruch Hu commands us, step up when these people are having a hard time. Step up and step forward. And if one of the neighbors or friends of this brave girl hears this, step up.
You say a similar thing about the Baal Shem Tov. They say they're not allowed to be a maimin on somebody else's cheshbon. So when knocks on your door, say, don't worry, Hashem's going to help you. Don't worry. Okay,
what do you call Mesiras Nefesh that you do? What do you call Mesiras Nefesh from another person? When you meiser someone else's Nefesh, we call it murder.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the next live question, you're on.
Hi. So my question is maybe a little similar to one before, but just the different circumstances.
Speak a little slower and clearer. Sorry.
Sorry. You hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a bit similar, though different circumstances to the question before. I am in individual therapy for childhood trauma, and my mother agreed to come with me to a session with a therapist. My question is what should be how to convey these messages to give it over to her in a way she could understand and hear what it was like for me growing up with emotional neglect and verbal and physical abuse.
So your mother is willing to come because she recognizes that there might be something, or she is willing to come because you're pressing her, but she has no idea that an atom bomb's about to explode in the room.
She got
Was
muted.
was my question clear?
Yeah, your question was clear. Let me just unmute her. She muted herself.
Sorry. So she knows that I've been struggling for a while. And then like at one point she reached out, like she texted me that like I should come with her to a therapist so she could get me the help I need. And I told her I'm already in therapy, but I could come with you. I don't think she knows. I don't know if she knows exactly what's coming, but she does know I'm struggling, and she does know that I'm in therapy.
I'm just going to throw out a suggestion. It's going to take some control on your part and some restraint. It sounds like you have some. You're not going to say you did this, and you did that, and that, because then she will likely be very flooded and very unable, and maybe the same things that caused her to do what she did might well come to the surface. But maybe you could talk about what you need from her. What do you need from her? And this maybe you know it, maybe that's a further conversation with the therapist. What do I need from my mother at this point in time? Do I need her just to love me? Do I need to know that she really cared about me, even if she couldn't express it properly, even if she got so flooded by her own needs that she couldn't give me what she needed to or wanted to? You know, like you give her a little bit of a doorway into what your needs are, without directly, assaulting her entire thought process or image of herself in her mind as a caring parent.
Yeah. Thank you.
If that works, great.
Hopefully the therapists can guide that in the right way.
Hopefully.
Bringing in a parent, while the child in the therapy, hopefully it's done the right way so that they can continue on the healing process.
Right.
Yeah. So here's another question that came in. Just a second. I'm dealing with a struggling 16-year-old, and I didn't let him get a phone. The other night I saw he has one in his room. What should be my approach? How can I love him unconditionally when he went behind my back like that? And what benefit will he have if I just let him do what he wants?
Okay, so we come back to the question of leverage. And we come back to the question of love. So, we say every day when we say Modani, Rabba Emunah Secha. Your Emunah is great. Kadosh Baruch Hu's Emunah is great. What does that even mean? There's a lot of different ways to go to make sense of this statement, but we make it every day, and most days we don't even know what we're thinking and what we're saying unless we really dug down and drilled down into what does that mean? Rabba Emunah Secha. But there is a medrash that says that Kadosh Baruch Hu Hemin ba'olam u'bra'ah. Kadosh Baruch Hu believed in the world and he created it. What does it mean he believes in the world? He knows the outcome. I think what it means is that he gave us free will. And that free will means that we could go against his will. And we still ask him to love us. Every day we're saying, Im avaynos tishmor ka Hashem mi ya'amod. If you will watch our sins, who could stand? Who could endure? Ki imcha slicha. No, the slicha is with you. You're the one who could. Leman tivari. We have to unpack that, right? V'harbei moifidus. Kosh Baruch Hu, your ability to give us Right? We call him a Rav Slichois, Harbeim Fidus. You have a lot. You have so much forgiveness in you. No matter how big our sin is, you're bigger than that. And this is what we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu all the time. All the time. Every single day, every time we say Tachman. Remember, I used to think Tachman was this terrible thing. And then when I suddenly started to learn what it was saying, it's not made to make us feel bad. It's to say, wow, I do feel bad, but I'm asking you anyway to forgive me, to give me love, to help me go on the right path. So when we talk about the approach, what's the approach? The approach is the child betrayed my trust. That really is terrible. Okay, what are we asking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and every time we say Tachnan, and every time we say Hashamnu, and every time we do any of those things? This is what we're asking for. So let's just back off and zoom out for a minute and realize we did this too. We do this too. I heard a rumor that even Rav Moshe Feinstein used to clap al chet on Yom Kippur. I heard a rumor. So that means this is part of the human experience. Maybe he was doing it for us because he didn't himself do it. It's very possible. Al chet shechatanu, we say it in the Lashon Rabbim, but at the end of the day, we all need Slicha Mechila. We all mess up, and we all do things that we know we shouldn't do. Sometimes we slip, and sometimes it's hard for us not. So, first of all, that's the understanding. How can I love my child unconditionally? Oh, because he's a human being. I thought my child wasn't going to be human. I thought he was going to be perfect. I was going to save him from the Yetzer Hara. Didn't work. Okay, plan B. What's happening? What control do I have? What leverage do I have? What's going on with the child? What's the conversation? If I take it from him, well, I didn't give him one and he went ahead and he bought one with his own money. Does he want my trust? Does he feel he had my trust? Did he have my trust until then? Or did he have my naivete? And did he play on that? What's happening? Do I feel that the child is manipulating me, or I feel the child is doing what all his friends are doing? And what happens to so many kids when they're having a hard time and they're just looking for an escape? Is it something that he sees that I'm always on? So that he wants to be on it also. It's very hard not to. But even if not, and even if I don't have it, but he's having it. So now is the time, Mushamativ, I have to hear him. What's going on? What are the struggles? Is it hard having the phone? Are there struggles? Is it taking you to places that afterwards, how do you feel after you've been to those places? What's happening with you? If you have a phone yourself, wow. Well, how do you deal with you having a conversation with your child about the phone? Well, nobody's stronger than their phone, right? Maybe some people are. Mute. Also, we put on filters, okay, so there's the conversation. How do I fight this? I also have to fight this. When I go on the street, I see things as well. It doesn't go away just because I'm older or married, I have a beard, I could have payas, I could have a shtreimel. It doesn't make a difference. The Yetzer Hara hits all of us. Just hits us at our point of weakness. So then it becomes time for real conversation with the child and trying to be on the same page and trying to understand what the child is going through. And sometimes the child will give it up. Sometimes he'll have a filter. And sometimes he's going to have to get a lot worse before he can get better. And it's really a question of how much leverage do I have? How much trust do I have? What do I have in my bank account with the child? Even though the children are supposed to just listen to us.
It's a lot of work. I think parents have to really slow down when that happens. It hits them in the face. And before they respond, there's a lot of work that has to be done. How to react, how to, slow down and listen to what you're saying now. It's a lot of change, the way you're thinking. Maybe you thought about your child. You thought your child is, Baruch Hashem, he's matzliach, and now you realize that he's struggling, and your whole story changes.
Yeah, my father used to say diplomat. I mean, he was quoting actually, I think, Edward Heath, who was maybe the prime minister or something, foreign minister of England, but he said a diplomat is someone who thinks twice and says nothing. And sometimes, as we said, but we do have to address it, and we do have to engage it, and we do have to have a conversation. But we have to be hearing him instead of judging him. And that's really hard because our reaction is so powerful to feeling that we couldn't trust the child. It's so hard. And so what's the starting point? What's the rule? How am I preparing myself in advance? 1 second. I love this child and I want this child to flourish. And me just telling him what to do isn't going to.
And I'll tell the parents that this is the time your child needs you. They're probably going through a struggle, and you're finding out about it, which you don't want to know about. It's too hard. But this is the time they need somebody to discuss it, somebody to be open. And that's not easy to be there.
Yeah. Giving the child the ability, recognizing that the child has free will, and giving him an opportunity to use it, and giving him faith to use it. And by the way, that means he's gonna stumble a few times, just like Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us free will, and therefore we do all the errors that we do because we have free will. The child has to go through his process also. And we try with the upbringing that we give and whatever level of protection and we try to give them, and the bubble that we try to create from them, that bubble is our home. And whatever level of protection we're trying to give to protect from the outside walls, when that wall gets breached, the rules change. And we have to respond accordingly. Trying to get the child back in the bubble doesn't usually work because the child's already outside. But the same things that had us create that bubble, the love and the concern for the well-being of the child, now we have to learn, okay, this is a new reality. And you need to talk to somebody. You need to have a mentor, a Rebbe, a mentor, a Rebbitzin, a therapist, all one, a friend who just has a listening ear and some wisdom. You can bounce things off. And how does it feel like if we talk this way? And how does it feel like if this, friends is so important. Support. I'm not in this alone.
Thank you, Rabbi Greenwald. Well, let's go to another live question. Hi.
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Greenwald. How are you? Dovi Eisenberger. I'm like, I just have to go and say hello, but I also have to ask a question. It's good to see Rabbi, and you look very good, Baruch Hashem. And I had a question. I think this question it's universal. In the Yiddish Welt in America specifically, we're in the month of Adar, and it's a time of Simcha. And I've heard different approaches about how to deal with the matzav in Eretz Yisrael and bring it into the home, an awareness. On the one hand, I heard some mechanechim say, you have to maintain a simchadik home. Sort of like not forgetting about what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, but, we don't want to traumatize the children. But, I'm in chinuch for 13 years. I think we're a lot more resilient. Children are a lot more resilient. But I think with this specific what's going on, we could be missing out on a tremendous chinuch opportunity. And they're going to come back in 30, 40 years. They're going to think, what was my home like? Now, I'm going to give one mashal which I heard someone say, and it bothered me. So they brought an awareness, and they said to some of the Talmidim before they daven, they said, Rabbi Sai, every tefillah that you do right now, and it's every time they daven, it could save another neshama with all, and that is, I find to be unhealthy. It's too much of a focus that every tefillah, every mitzvah is about the matzav in Eretz Yisrael is a little bit unhealthy because it could be
too heightened, too much pressure, constant with no.
Too much pressure. But on the other hand, so I would like to get some feedback from the Rosh Hashiva about how to maintain it, yet also with a healthy, and not to lose out on this opportunity. We're going to turn 30, 40 years. The children are going to be older. They're going to say, how did we react? And we don't want to miss out this opportunity.
Toby, I still remember your Purim costume. Speaking of Adar, this is a really hard one. On the one hand, we're always trying to be on some level Mishin Dechasaber Marden B'Simcha. On the other hand, we're Noisei B'Oil Im Chaver. You want to do something, maybe you've already done this. I asked all the Rebbeim in the beginning. Now I have to come up with a different idea. But in the beginning of the conflict, after a week or two had gone by, sit down and learn with the children, with the Talmidim. I did it with my own kids. a Zoom with my own kids, learning through Shir HaMalash Mimamakim, learning through it. What does it mean? What are we asking for? What's happening? Just getting in touch with the reality of the things that we're learning, and then trying to apply them to what's, this is what's going on, and this is, and we're concerned and we're frightened. For some people, life isn't going on because they're kind of frozen. We have no choice but have life go on, because life is going on. And just being depressed around our kids because of the matziv is not really a solution. If there's something that we're able to add into our day, you see, we do it with the Tehillim, but now Tehillim already, like you hear them, just trying to slow it down a little, trying to slow down a little when we do the things that we're supposed to be doing. The Tehillim, the Tzedakah, the awareness, we're trying not to go over the top. Sometimes like we go over the top. And how do we not go over the top at the same time as we do things that are simchadik? And it's hard. Like, some people every year they're looking for a different theme. They're looking for a different, Purim theme and it's really hard. It's really hard sometimes to figure it out. I mean, it's supposed to be a time of simcha. It's a time that it's the reminder that we survived all this. So the people in Eretz Yisrael, to some extent, might be feeling it a little bit more directly if they have children in the army or neighbors in the army or relatives in the army. But if not, and they're not sitting on the news all day, then, it's almost not going on. And so what about, Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael? And so I don't have an answer. I know that this is the struggle each day, to slow down the Tehillim that we're saying, to be a little bit aware of it, to let the kids know that we're trying to add some tov to the world. We're trying to be a little better to each other. We're continuing to work on something. You can't live every day with that tension and function well. People who are in the emergency, I heard Rav Dessler during World War II, he didn't sleep on a pillow the entire Milchama. But most of us, we need to have an awareness, and we need to do something that I'm doing for them. I'm doing something for them. It's part of my daily Seder. It's part of my daily schedule. And each time I try to be a little bit mindful, aware, do it with kavana. People use the word mindful. We used to use the word kavana, right? Just a little bit of intentionality. Like, no, this is, I do this for them. This tefillah, this limud, this chesed, and then go on with your day and be cookie with your talmidim and be cookie with your kids and give them all the simcha that you know how to give and continue doing that. So I think I'm again, there's only an opinion. It's not das Torah. It's not anything. It's just an opinion.
By doing the mitzvahs with simcha, that itself is a schus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different if you say we're going to save, we're saving lives every minute, or if you say we're bringing good to the world, by doing.
Right. We're trying to add a little light to the darkness. Every day we say Ashreinu, Matov Chelkenu, Mana. Really? Wow. Like, we start even a little earlier. Every day we say Moide Ani Lifanecha. Yeah, like how long does it take? How many thoughts go into it? Do I stop? This is like a lesson that when I was sick became very real for me. And as I got better, became more of a struggle to maintain. But it's still an avoida. Did I say Moida Ani today? Did I really mean it? Do I remember actually like taking a minute and appreciating like actual life? Because when things were going bad and I didn't know if I'd ever take another breath, then I didn't even take breathing for granted. I was like, I can't wait to feel better so I could take this all for granted again. Wow. We're not allowed to take it for granted. So to the best of our ability, we have to be aware. Hashem, there's still life. While there's life, there's hope. So we continue. But that's how we're continuing. We're not continuing by just escaping and pushing it aside.
Wow.
That's the best I could do on this.
So here's a question before we go to closing. There's a idea of what happened to Kavod Torah, Kavod for the teachers, today's days. We're friends with the kids and let them do whatever they want, or not whatever they want, but they have to have the Kavod Torah.
Yeah, they do. So there's two things. One is if we have to demand the kavod rather than who we are demanding the kavod, if it's our position demanding the kavod rather than ourself demanding the kavod. In other words, we have to have a certain dignity that we carry ourselves with and a certain control that we carry ourselves with if we actually want to be respected. The Rambam says first of all, it's true. It's true. We're bringing the job of the Rebbe, the job of the parent. A parent who teaches his child Torah, who teaches him mitzvahs. He's even also bringing him Chai Olam Hazeh and Chai Olam Haba. Rebbe is bringing him Chai Olam Haba. This is important stuff, and the child has to know it's important, and the seriousness with which we approach our task makes a big difference. Of course, if we take ourselves too seriously, it kind of gets in the way. So here we are trying to take our task seriously without taking ourselves so seriously, but recognizing what an awesome responsibility and opportunity we have to make a difference in the lives of these children. But aren't they just supposed to respect us? Yes, they are. Are we supposed to respect them? Are we supposed to respect them? You know what? That should be a poll. But the Rambam says in Hilchos Talmud Torah, in Perek Hey, he says, Kishem, just as the Rebbe has to have covered, the Talmud has to have covered for the Rebbe has to have covered for the Talmud. Amazing statement, just as. In other words, there needs to be, there's something called Kemayim Panim al Panim. Shlomo Melech said, like the mirror image, like the reflection of the water, the reflection of one face to another. And the face in Klal Yisrael, Panim, doesn't just mean the expression. Panim also is the word for Pnim, the inner dimension. And that's why we don't say Pan, which would be like a singular. We say Panim, which is plural. Our face is plural, yeah, because it's a reflection of the outer and the inner person. If the child sees that he is being treated with kavod, it's much easier for him to show kavod. That's how he learns to show kavod. That's how he learns his value, by the value that's being shown. And having kavod for a child doesn't mean not holding him to a standard, and it doesn't mean not encouraging him to be better. The Rambam also says, right, Gemara, you have to also, the child has to also know who's boss. He has to know who's boss. That is done by the dynamic and by the room, by the control of the room, not the people. You can't control people. But what's the mood that I'm creating in the room? What's the mood that what are my skills like at maintaining decorum in the classroom? Does the child learn that the only time he has to behave is when I start yelling? Then already I've completely abdicated my responsibility as a responsible leader. What response does the child know to take seriously? That depends on how I hold myself and how I contain myself and how I deal with them and what lessons I teach them. And there are really good courses out there for teaching teacher skills, just classroom skills, management. And the child has to respect you. The child has to know that you're worthy of respect. Moshe Shapiro told me years ago, we have a klal in the Gemara, Hamoitzi mechaveri olav haraya. Person, you have two people. I say, Ruvain owes me money. Ruvain says, I don't owe you money. Ruvain's holding the money. It's in his hands. He is the one who's holding it. He's the muhsak. He's holding it. He has the status that the money belongs to him. If I want to take it out of his hand, I have to bring a proof, witnesses that I lent him the money. Otherwise, it stays by him. Or a document, a shtar that says that he lent me that he borrowed the money from me. Rav Moshe said to me, in this generation, the muhzuk is the street. We have to bring a riot to our children if we want them not to be in the street. We have to bring the proof. The burden of proof is on us. The world has changed. The street is really powerful. We have to bring the proof to win that battle against the street. And that means that we're going to have to give them everything that we have and all the things that we use to hold ourselves. We have to be transferring and showing and beaming and radiating and expressing in our relationship with them. And that's for a Rebbe and that's for a parent. That's my understanding.
Robert Greenwald. Let's go to one more live question, then we're going to go to the closing segment. Okay, you're on.
So just in regard to this topic now that was brought up, what do we do as parents if we did work through these type of topics and we do believe in this as the Ava is very strong, and we come on Coach Menachem weekly and we learn how to do this, and we are faced with the school system and there are sometimes teachers and rebbeim that don't do this. How as parents do we navigate the not knocking the system because we don't want to do that when the kid comes home, but also kind of, yeah.
So this is really hard. Because when we feel that our mechanchim aren't being mechanech, and sometimes that's the feeling. And as a mechanech, there are times that I wasn't mechanech, and sometimes we fail, and sometimes we let our worst self get on top of the game, and we don't give over what we wish we had given over, and then afterwards we're full of regret, and we can try to fix it, and sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't, and to this day there are regrets that every Rebbe has, that every parent has. It's inevitable. So let's start with that. Mistakes are part of the process. Sometimes systematically, there's some kind of problem within the system. I had a friend once, his child was struggling in Yeshiva Ketana. He went to speak to the mashgiach, and the mashgiach says, we don't deal with boys that have problems over here. So apparently only the staff were allowed to have problems in that issue. Shem Yirachem. How could a person not have problems? But sometimes, in a factory, we just want to, and sometimes the parents are, by the way, at fault because the parents are demanding a higher level of parenting from the school for their kids. And sometimes that drives the school to, if they want to be a popular school, I guess it depends on which community you live in and how hard it is to get into school. Back in the old days when they were searching for kids in the street to get them into school, there was nothing that was too high a price to pay to keep this kid in school, to make sure he was from. Today, in our disposable society with Baruch Hashem, I don't know, our community has grown 10, 15, 20 times in the last 30 years. It's expanded so incredibly. It feels sometimes like, people are just feel disposable. And it's really hard. And one of the things that we do when the child is having that difficulty in school is, first of all, sometimes we try to find some outside enrichment. First, I will go to speak to somebody in the school and try to talk to them about some of the things. Sometimes that proves to be helpful. Most teachers in Rebbeim are human beings, ruba de ruba, and they can be spoken to. Again, very few people like to be accused or confronted, but this is what my child is going through, and this is what he's seeing, and this is what he's understanding is going on. And even though I'm sure that's not what you're trying to convey to him, this is what he's feeling. So how can we work together on this? So at first I was trying to get the school to intervene. If that proves difficult, I'll try to find older brother, big sister kind of thing. And I try to give a lot of support to the kid. And one of the things is hear the kid out always, this is what went on. Oh, that's hard. And try to empower the child. Like, listen, when the child talks it all out. Okay, so what do you want to do about it? Well, okay, doing nothing isn't an option. So what can we do about it? What are some ideas? I had a child who had such a hard time in school, and she would come home and she'd still be in a school uniform, and she'd go to sleep every day, headache after school for hours, wake up at like 9 o'clock at night, all bleary-eyed. I said, what time does school end? She says, 4 o'clock. I said, why are you in school till 9 o'clock? The moment you get home, get out of your school clothes and go do something you enjoy. Go. She loved to babysit, she danced, she did all. Go Make the rest of your day good. And Baruch Hashem, that's how she survived. It was difficult, and it was very difficult, and it was very, very difficult. And every single day when she went to school, every single day, I said a prayer to him before she left the house. Baruch Hashem, she's gewaldig. But we held on really tight. And should I tell us that I wanted to close kind of with a story from Moshe Shapiro?
Let's go to the closing. Let's wrap it up. We'll leave it by the closing.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a story with my Rebbe, Moshe Shapiro. I had this incredible.
We're gonna go to. Let me just give me a minute, okay?
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, sorry for you. Okay. First of all, a gracious credit for Rabbi Chananya Greenwald coming on tonight. He woke up very early in the morning. Hope that Shana can catch a shachris, get a bit of shluch today. Really appreciate tonight. Was very powerful and tremendous chizuk for everybody. And again, if anybody wants to join the WhatsApp, you can WhatsApp 732-314-1710, and then you can join the community. The best thing is to go to menachembernfeld.com and sign up for the weekly emails. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night at 9:30 on the Zoom ID, we have different shiurim, different topics, different people coming on speaking. Next week we're going to have February 25th a discussion of Shmuel Reichman about how to keep the achdus, that it shouldn't fade away, because right now it seems like in Klal Yisrael, especially in Eretz Yisrael, the achdus is strong. So he's going to come. He's a great speaker and he's very inspirational. So please join us next week. Make sure everything's recorded. Make sure via menachembernfeld.com. If anyone has any questions, please email coachmenachem@gmail.com. Tonight's share is 176. If you want to hear it on the phone number, Menachem has a direct number, 732-305-9011, 732-305-9011. And again, thank you to all the advertising sponsors, Liquid Scoop, Elinario, 5 Town Central, Kyle Kaufman from JCN. And Rabbi Chananya, thank you for coming on tonight. It was very powerful, and we really covered a lot. Tremendous chizuk for me and for everybody here, the thousands of people that will listen to it. We'll go to Coach Menachem, and then Rabbi Chananya, you leave us with a closing to remember.
Shkoyach, Rabbi Greenwald. There was a lot. There was a lot tonight. Baruch Hashem, we covered a lot. We heard a lot. And I think the main thing for all of us, we have to slow down a little bit. Especially for those who have challenges connecting to parents, kids. It's to really slow down, take a deep breath. We're so busy, there's so much going on, and like we mentioned, when you're confronted with these challenges, you don't want to see it, you don't want to take care of it because it's too hard, and that's where we struggle to connect to whoever it is. And then those who struggle, they don't have it to talk to. And then there's a lot of loneliness. And like we heard, not always could you talk to a parent. And that could be a challenge. What are you supposed to do? So, like we heard, a lot of tefillah, connecting to Hashem. And many have a challenge with that too. But we have to start somewhere. A little bit at a time, with accepting where you are, accepting that we're human, like we heard, and we're not perfect. We have our ups and downs, and that's part of slowing down. When you slow down, you realize you're not always in a place where you have the answers. You're not always in a place where you know exactly what to do. You don't, and it's a challenge. It's a struggle. Okay, so what do I do? And the most important thing I want to mention is you don't always have to do it by yourself, Pick up the phone, call someone, whether it's a friend, somebody ask a question, what am I doing? Am I doing it the right way? Am I reacting? Just to see, to take that moment to be able to slow down, and that hopefully some guidance, whether it's a therapist, a Rav, Mashpia, whatever it is, somebody who you can talk to and tell them this is what I'm going through and I don't know what to do. And you're not the only one. We're many times in a place where you just don't know what to do. It's okay. Hashem should help us all, and with a lot of siyata d'shmaya, with a lot of tefillah, we should be able to continue davening for ourselves, for our kids, for our daughters, and the mitzvah Hashem, we should see siyata d'shmaya, we should see it. And thank you, Rabbi Greenwald, again. The mitzvah Hashem, we should... I think we'll have, maybe a part 2, continuation.
Okay, Rabbi Greenwald, let's go. 2 hours. Tell me what
Okay. I was going to tell a story which was very powerful for me. And I told it to a lot of people. And one of someone close to me told it actually to his therapist, and the therapist started crying. So I thought that was, I guess it wasn't so well known, and I wasn't the only person who was ignorant about this until it was kind of learned by me. Story is, I was Camp Sternberg. My father, the camp my father ran all those years. My sister ran a program there, and she asked me to speak to the staff. So we were having a conversation, and I said to them at one point something along the lines of, "Who here knows that the Rebbeinu Shalom loves them more than the parents, more than a parent ever loved the child, more than any spouse ever loved their spouse, more than any child ever loved their parent, from the dawn of creation until the end of time? Because Baruch Hu loves them more than that." So predictably, not very many hands went up. In fact, no hands went up. Okay. And then I said, "Who here has learned Musar that makes them feel like they're worth less than 2 cents? And that they're just despicable?" And every hand in the room except for one went up. And I said, "It's usher for you to learn Musar that makes you feel bad if you don't know how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. If you don't know it, you can't do it, because then you'll think he hates you because you're unworthy and you're despicable. And with that terrible distortion of the relationship, you will not be able to maintain a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's usher for you to learn that type of Musar." And that was more or less the content that I gave. It was the end of the summer. I was just there for a weekend. I went back to Eretz Yisrael. I was driving my Rebbe, my Shapiro, in the car, and I was feeling a little like maybe I spoke a little bit too strong. And so I was driving him, and I asked him, "Harav, this is the story. This is what I said, and I'm wondering, like maybe I said a little bit too much." And I told him exactly what I said. And till today, when I tell this, I get a little bit of goosebumps. I didn't hear anything coming from him. I was ostensibly driving, but we got to a traffic light as I was pulling out of Geula, and I looked at him, and he was glaring at me. Really glaring. Moshe was so kind to me. He was so good to me. He was so patient with me. He looked, I was afraid, like the Gemara says, I was going to turn into a pile of bones. He was just, and I stopped breathing. I just like looked at, and I was like a deer in the headlights. Baruch Hashem, the car behind me started to honk, so I started to drive again, one eye on him and one eye on the road. And after like 100 years, he said to me, he didn't say anything. He was like so frustrated with me. Didn't say anything. I was like, okay, what does that mean? He said, what you said is so basic and so fundamental. You didn't say anything. It's like saying that the sky is up, the ground is down. You said nothing at all. I don't even understand what your question is. It's so posh. So I said to him, I am so grateful that what I said was not wrong. I didn't realize it was simple. I want to share that kind of the way I grew up, the way most of my friends grew up, it felt like borderline kfira. And he groaned. There's no other word. It was a krech, like from the bottom of his feet. His entire body shook. He groaned. And he said, that is destruction. That is destruction. We're so busy teaching the children Yiras Hashem and Avas Hashem without realizing first that Avas Olam, that Ava Rabbah, we're so busy, we don't even understand. If we don't understand that, we don't understand anything about Yiddishkeit. I'm done.
Beautiful, Rabbi Greenwald. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. And Menachem, you should continue to be the Rebbe of Klal Yisrael, all your Talmidim. And Menachem will see everybody next week, same time, same place. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.